Blood dripped beneath a gnarled oak where Nuna, a towering Comanche warrior, hung bound, his life fading with each labored breath. In the shadowed Texas wilderness of 1876, moonlight sliced through the dense canopy, casting jagged shadows on the gnarled oak in the heart of Blackwater Creek's forsaken woods. Nuna hung from a thick branch, his wrists raw and bleeding under coarse ropes that bit into his flesh. Blood seeped from a gash across his chest, staining his buckskin shirt, each drop glistening like obsidian in the pale light. His arms strained, muscles taut as bowstrings, fighting the weight of his own body. Above him, a rattlesnake slithered along the branch, its scales scraping bark, tongue flicking as if tasting his fading strength. Every shallow breath Nuna drew was a battle, his dark eyes burning with defiance despite the pain clawing at his body. The night was still, save for the creak of ropes and the distant howl of a coyote. His lips cracked, blood and dust caking his face, and he rasped, "Please, just make it quick." Not a plea for death, but for release. From the shadows, a small figure emerged. Sarah Dawson, barely 10, in a tattered black and white dress, a worn brown vest hanging loose, and an oversized cowboy hat shadowing her wide, trembling eyes. Dirt smudged her cheeks and her hands shook, but a spark of defiance burned within her. She clutched a small knife, its blade nicked but sharp, glinting as she stepped forward. Her boots, too big for her feet, scuffed the earth as she approached. The snake hissed, but she did not stop. She set her jaw, placed a foot on the rough trunk, and began to climb. Each scrape of her boots, each crack of bark sounded like thunder in the silence. The snake coiled tighter, its head inching closer, tongue darting as if daring her to falter. "Go, kid," Nuna croaked weakly. "Run!" But Sarah shook her head and climbed higher, gripping the branch with one hand and sawing through the blood-soaked rope with the other. The blade caught, then cut, each fiber snapping like a gunshot. A gust of wind shook the tree. Sarah clung tight as the snake lunged, its fangs grazing the air an inch from her cheek. Still, she cut through blood from Nuna's wrists, smearing her fingers. "Hold on," she whispered to herself. The final rope gave way, and Nuna's arm dropped, his body swinging hard. From the darkness, a mocking voice broke the silence. "Good job, Sarah. You think I'd let it be that easy?" A boy no older than 15 stepped into the moonlight. Eli Malone, clad in a battered leather coat, eyes gleaming with cruelty beyond his years. His knife glinted as he leaned against a tree, watching like a vulture. "You were supposed to lead him to us, not play hero." Sarah's face paled. She had been forced here, a pawn in Eli's game, her family in Redstone held hostage by his father, Jack Malone, a bounty hunter with a taste for Comanche scalps. But now her choice was clear. She sliced the last rope, and Nuna crashed to the ground, gasping alive. The snake recoiled into the dark. Eli's smile vanished. "You little traitor," he snarled, stepping forward, knife raised. Sarah's hand shook, but she held her ground. Nuna, struggling to rise, locked eyes with her, a silent vow forming between them. Sarah hurled her knife at Eli's hand, slicing his palm. His weapon clattered to the dirt. He howled, clutching his bleeding hand. "You'll pay for that, cousin," he spat. Sarah grabbed Nuna's arm, dragging him toward the underbrush as Eli's shouts and the baying of hounds echoed behind them. They stumbled into the forest, branches clawing at their skin. Nuna leaned on Sarah, his breath ragged but steady. "Keep moving, kid," he rasped. They reached the cold waters of Blackwater Creek. Sarah waded in, pulling Nuna with her. "They'll lose our scent here," she whispered. Nuna nodded, tearing a strip from his shirt to bind his wound. The current tugged at their legs as they waded downstream, the sound of hounds closing in. Eli's voice rang out from the distance. "You can't run forever, Sarah. Pa's gonna skin you both." Nuna gestured to willows by the bank. They ducked beneath the drooping branches as lantern light swept the opposite shore. "Why'd you do it, kid?" Nuna murmured. Sarah's lips quivered. "They made me. Eli is my cousin, but he and Jack, they're monsters. They've got my aunt in Redstone. I couldn't let you die." Nuna's expression softened. He pulled a small bone-handled dagger from his belt and pressed it into her hand. "Take this. You're no pawn anymore." The hound's howls grew louder. Nuna pointed to a narrow ravine downstream.
"We move now or we're done." They slipped away through the icy water, pushing forward until dawn's gray light revealed a lone rider ahead. Sarah froze, fearing Jack Malone. But it was Will Dawson, her long-lost uncle. He dismounted, rifle in hand. "What's a Comanche doing with my niece?" he demanded. "He's not the enemy, Uncle. Jack Malone is," Sarah pleaded. The sound of hounds returned. Will's jaw clenched. "Move!" He lifted Sarah onto his horse and helped Nuna climb behind. They rode through Devil's Ridge, bullets whistling past. Will fired back, clipping one of Jack's men. Jack's furious voice echoed from the ridge. "You're mine, Dawson! You and that traitor niece!" Eli rode beside him, hand bandaged, eyes blazing. Will's horse thundered through a dry creek bed as Nuna and Sarah fled on a black Mustang. "Hold tight, kid," Nuna growled, as the horse galloped into the open plain. Will covered their escape, but a bullet grazed his hat. They raced toward the sagebrush alley, where wild mustangs grazed in the dawn light. Nuna calmed the black stallion with whispered Comanche words and mounted with Sarah. Another gunshot cracked, dust sprayed near Will's feet. "Get to the stallion," he shouted. Nuna swung Sarah up, spurred the horse, and they tore across the valley. Behind them, Jack's riders fanned out like wolves. Bullets hissed past, splintering trees. Sarah's hair whiffed in the wind. "If you're out there listening to this tale," she whispered as if to unseen ears, "share where you're from and keep the story alive." The Mustang plunged into a rocky creek bed. Will followed, blood seeping from his arm. "You can't outrun me, Sarah!" Eli shouted, firing again. A bullet grazed the horse's flank. Nuna steadied it, pushing through a narrow gap in the ravine. Rocks scraped their legs as they emerged into a hidden gully thick with sagebrush. Silence at last, just their breaths and the pounding of hearts. The night fell over Devil's Ridge, a shroud of stars and danger. They found shelter in a small cave hidden by mesquite. Inside, Will lit a match, its glow flickering on stone walls. "We rest here, but keep watch." Sarah sat beside Nuna, clutching the dagger, her face streaked with dirt and courage. "You ain't like most kids. What drives you, girl?" Sarah's eyes lowered. "My pa taught me to do what's right, even when it hurts. Jack Malone took everything. I won't let him take you too." Nuna nodded, his face unreadable, but his respect clear. Outside, the wind whispered through the sage, carrying the promise of another dawn, and the echo of a legend born from blood, dust, and defiance.